Hello beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. I'm Ifoma. So in today's tutorial, I'm going to be making this beautiful two-piece. This is a skirt and a crop top. Let's dive into the video. Now to begin, I have 4 yards of fabric here, but you can need more if you are making for a bigger size. And all the measurements you need is the shoulder measurement, which is the together shoulder. Mine is 24. It means measure your shoulder, then you add the sleeve, right? Then for the bust, you also have your bust measurement added. You also need to add your allowance because it's not a fitted cloth. Now for the waist of the top, you will use whatever you use on the bust, and for the waist of the trouser, the short, you use whatever you use for your hip. Now the length, and that's all the measurements you need. You also need your thigh measurement and your round sleeve. Now, to get your fabric fold, you're going to divide your thigh measurement by 2 and you're going to add 1 inch to it. So whatever you have in your thigh measurement, being it 15, that is, if you have like 30 inches for your thigh, you divide it to be 15, you are going to add 1 inch for your sewing allowance, right? That is how you're going to get your fabric fold. Now, after folding my fabric, you're going to start taking your measurement. The first measurement I took is the length of the skirt I'm making, right? So I minus 2 inches for the folding allowance for the hem. You're going to fold the hem, remember? So you're going to leave like 2 inches or 1.5 inches, depending on how bold you want the folding to be. Now, when you've left the allowance, that is the allowance you saw there, you are seeing there right now. I'm going to go ahead and measure my length. Now I measured the length, and to measure your length, I'm also going to minus 2 inches or 1.5 inches from the waist, depending on the elastic you're going to be using and the length of the band you want this to have. Now, the elastic I'm going to be using for this is 2 inches elastic. So I went ahead to minus that 2 inches while taking the length of my pants. Now, the next thing I went ahead to do is to take the length of my crotch. So from that line, as you can see, to take the length of my crotch now, you can either measure from the line down to the crotch, or you can also leave that 2 inches or 1.5 inches band we are going to put. Now in my case, I minus the 2 inches band while taking my crotch, and this depends on the crotch and the size of the person you're working for. And for this crotch, I use 12 inches at the end of the day. After everything, it's going to be 12 inches for the front. Remember, the back is going to be different, but that is also optional and it depends on the kind of pants you are making, right? So when I've taken my crotch line, I went ahead to go up by 2.5 inches, and on that line I took my hip measurement. Now that hip line is what I extended to the waistline. So having done that, I went ahead to connect like so, and then I went ahead to cut out. This is for the front. Right after cutting, I wanted to shape it in a little in that front, because we remember this is going to have a half elastic, so elastic at the back and the front is going to be normal band, right? So to shape it in a little, I took out 1 inch on the waist and I connected that 1 inch to this crotch line. As you can see, I extended my crotch line just so I can connect that 1 inch I took away from the waist. Now, when I connected it, I went ahead to cut it out, right? This is just to give it a little bit of shape so that when we fix the zipper is going to sit well on the waist rather than going back, right? If you not do this, you are going to have your zipper going back, going towards your back instead of sitting where it's supposed to be, right? So when I was done doing that, I went ahead to fold another piece of fabric, and this time what we are cutting is the back part. So I placed the front on top of that fabric I folded, and when I was folding that fabric, I made sure it was wider than what I have at the front, because you know we are going to be adding 2 inches on the side of our front, and we're also going to be adding 1.5 inches on the crotch line, as you can see. And on the waist, we are going to go up from the front by 1.5 inches, and then we are going to connect it all the way down to the side. Now for the side, you're going to make sure that the side of the front and the side of the back is equal, the length is equal, so that one is not going to be longer than the other. right? And for the side of the back, we're not going to shape it. Remember, the back has an elastic, so the elastic is going to gather it. We are not going to shape it like the way we shaped the front. So take note. I just went ahead and divided the front and the back, and this is what we have. Remember, the sides 2 inches, the crotch line 1.5, and the waist 1.5 as well. Now, when I was done doing this, the next thing I went ahead to cut is the skirt, that is the wrap in the front, right? So to get the length of the lap of the wrap, I went ahead to take my measurement from the waist of the front. So I'm working with just the front now to the fold. Remember, we are going to fold it with 2 inches. Now, your own might be 1.5, your own might be 1 inch. Just use whatever you added as the allowance. And then I took the width of the wrap. Now the width of the wrap, depending on how covered you want the wrap to be, right? So I measured my one side of the front, I added it into two, and I minused 2 inches. That is how I got the width of my wrap. Now what I went ahead to do is make sure I add 1/2 inch to the down part of the wrap. So I'm going to use it and turn it, right? That is for the turning of the wrap. Then I went ahead to mark and also to cut out. Now for this wrap, it depends on how covered you want it to be, like I said before. So go ahead and work with whatever works for you. Now the next thing I went ahead to do is to cut out the pocket. For the pocket, the length of the pocket is going to be 12 inches and the width of the pocket is 6 inches, right? This depends on how deep you want your pocket to be as well. But the width of the pocket remains the same, which is 6 inches. Right now, you're going to cut out two of these pockets for the both sides, right? So this is what we have. Now that we are done cutting the down part, which is the short, we're going to go ahead and start cutting the top. And for the top, I already cut out piece of fabrics I'm going to use. Now I cut out one fabric on fold, and that is going to be the back. And for the front is one fabric that I divided into two for the two sides of the front. Remember that this is a shirt, right? It's like a shirt crop top. Now, first thing, how you're going to get the amount of fabric to cut out is you are going to divide your shoulder measurement by 2. Now the shoulder I worked with in this project is 24 divided by 2, and I added extra 2 inches for freeness and also for the sewing allowance, and again for the front I added extra 2 inches as well. So that is how we are going to get the measurement. That 2 inches I added is for the placket and placket overlap. You are going to get it as we move on. Now I folded away 1.5 inches from that into 2 inches I added for the front. I folded it away as you can see. That is the placket itself. And then I also took out 1/2 inch. So which means the way I place this, I place my front on top of the back, leaving 1/2 inch in the center front, on the center front, sorry. So I started taking my measurement, divided my shoulder measurement into two. I added the measurement. I went down by the length, the size of my sleeve, which is my round sleeve divided by two. I also went ahead to take my bust measurement divided by 4, right? Bust measurement divided by 4 plus 1 inch for the freeness and extra 1 inch for the sewing allowance. Now here is me adding 0.5 inches for the placket overlap, which I extended the front by making sure I take out that 0.5 inches before I place the back. Now the back started 0.5 inches below the front, right? So all the measurements I'm taking now is going to be with the back, the center back, right? Which I said that the front was wider than the front is wider than the center back by 0.5 inches. So for the neck width, I used 2.5, taking the measurement from the center back, right? And for the depth of the front, I used 4 inches, and for the depth of the back, I used 1.5 inches. Now, this depends on the size you're making this for. If the person is bigger or smaller, you can also reduce or maybe add your measurement. Now, I went ahead to cut out. Okay, so while cutting out your upper part, you're also going to make sure you minus the elastic you're going to be putting. It depends on the length of the elastic. If it's 1.5 inches elastic, then minus 1.5 inches from the length of your top. If it is 2 inches elastic, minus 2 inches from the length of your top, right? So now when we're done cutting, we're going to go ahead and start sewing. Now to start sewing, the first thing I'm going to start with is the short. Now, what you can see here is me taking the measurement of the pocket. The standard measurement for adult pocket is 7 inches. That is what you see me notch there, right? So what I'm going to first of all do is to work on the wrap. Now for the wrap, I'm going to use that 0.5 inches we added at the end of or the hem of the wrap to turn it just that side. The open side is going to enter the sewing, that is the shaping of the shirt, and the upper part is going to enter the waist of the shirt. So just turn just one side, right? I'm also going to join the midpoint of the front as well. Now this is what we have when we are done. Now this is what we have when we are done, and what we are going to go ahead to do now is to fold the hem of the shirt, both the front and the back. Fold the hem with whatever allowance you added while you were cutting it. So I added 2 inches and I used 2 inches to fold the hem. Now when I was done folding the hem, I opened this front. This is the front. Open it up like this. That now you are done folding the hem. Open it up like this, and then you place the wrap. As you can see, this is what it looks like. And when you place the wrap, you're going to make sure that it corresponds with the hip of the skirt. Now you're going to trim off the allowance just to make sure you still have that shape you added to the shirt while you were cutting it. Now I pinned this down and I went ahead to run a stitch on top just to keep it in place. Now the next thing I went ahead to do is to fix my pocket, right? You have to pay attention to this, or maybe slow this video down so you understand perfectly the way this pocket is fixed, right? So I placed the pocket on top on the side, as you can see, and I pinned it down. Now I made sure it corresponds with the shape of the shirt as well, right? So what I went ahead to do is to sew with 0.5 inches on the side. I want you to look closely. Sew with 0.5 inches on the side, and you're going to end the sewing at the notch, which is that 7 inches that we notched, right? That is where the sewing is going to end. So I went ahead to pin this down. Then I'm going to go to my sewing machine and sew with 0.5 inches, then end the sewing at the notch, right? So go ahead and also re-notch that place, which is notching the pocket part, and then make sure that you still have the shape this shirt has while you are cutting it. Now, the next thing I went ahead to do is to top stitch. This is optional. You can just press it and put a hemming gun, but I love top stitching it. It gives it a kind of beauty that I just cannot explain. Now, I went ahead to top stitch. After top stitching, the next thing I went ahead to do is to sew my pockets together. So to sew this pocket together, you know that this is how this pocket is supposed to look, right? But because you want it to be very neat, especially since I'm not going to be weaving that pocket side, I'm going to fold it on the wrong side. As you can see, I folded it like this and I went ahead to sew with 0.5 inches. Now on reaching to the end of it, you're going to see the end of it if you have been following properly. You're going to go down by 1 inch or half of an inch, and that is where you will stop your sewing. Now that place that you stopped your sewing, I went ahead to notch it. As you can see, just a slight notch. Then I went ahead to turn to the right side. Now this is how neat this pocket inside looks. This is how it looks on the wrong side of this um project, right? So the next thing I went ahead to do is to top stitch, right? Just top stitch. When you're done top stitching, you're going to set your pocket properly, and you're also going to top stitch just by holding your pocket in place. Also make sure that at the end of the day, this shirt still maintains the shape that it has. So now that we are done, this is what our pocket looks like. This is what the front is looking like so far. Now the next thing is to start working on the waist. We are going to start by working on the waist of the back, and to cut the material for the waistband, we are going to first of all take the measurement just the way you see me doing it. You're also going to take the measurement of the front as well. So I went ahead to take all the measurements and I noted it down. Then I brought out another piece of fabric that I'm going to use for the band. Now for the band, it depends on the length of the elastic that you have. That elastic, you should have known the elastic you're going to use for this, because you also needed that measurement when you were cutting, right? So I used the 2 inches elastic. So for this, we are going to cut out fabric 2 times your elastic plus 1 inch. That 1 inch is going to be for the allowance. So my elastic is 2 inches. So 2 times of 2 inches is 4 inches, and I added 1 inch. To be on the safer side, you can even add 1.5 inches. So you have enough space when you are um encasing your elastic with your fabric. So I like adding 1.5 inches. So what I cut out here is 5.5 inches because I used a 2 inches elastic. Now, when I cut it, I divided it into two for the front and for the back. They're not supposed to be equal, but my fabric was SX, so it was enough for me, right? So I divided it into two. One part of this band is going to be for the back, and the other part was for the front. Now, the first one I worked with is the one for the back. That is to encase the elastic with the band. And to do that, I have, like I said before, 2 inches elastic, and I went ahead to cut out the elastic that is going to be enough for me. So the next thing I went ahead to do is to cut out my elastic, the length of the elastic that I want, right? And to cut out the length of elastic, what I normally do, depend on the case, is by either I draw it just to see how gathered I want it to be, or I divide the band into two and I add 3 inches to it, right? And that is the method I used in this one. I divided my band into two and I added 3 inches to it. Then I also added an extra 1 inch for joining the band, for the allowance to the band, right? So that is what I did. So I went ahead to start encasing the elastic with the fabric. So now, to encase the elastic, what you need to do is to place the elastic in between the fabric, hold the edge down by sewing on top of it, and then you're going to start by using the allowance you added to sew two fabric together, making sure the elastic is in between and making sure you're not matching on the elastic, right? Then when you get to the other side, you're also going to hold the elastic down by also top stitching on it. So now this is what we have. I went ahead to top stitch on the elastic while drawing it, but that method is optional. That's if you want, right? So I love doing it because it makes it look better, right? So the next thing I went ahead to do is to join this band to the back. Now while joining it, you're going to be drawing on it, and we are going to make sure you're not sewing on the elastic. So while you're joining, you're going to be using the space, that is the allowance you have on your band. Now for the front, I highly recommend interfacing this front band, but I didn't interface mine. I just folded it into two and I joined it to the front using 0.5 inches. So at the end of the day, this is what is expected to look like, right? So I went ahead to join, right? So after joining, the next thing I went ahead to do is to shape. Now, before I shape, I went ahead to prepare my rope, right? You have to prepare the rope because the rope is going to enter the shaping, right? So one side of the rope is going to enter the shaping. I added my rope depending on where you want the rope to start. Then I placed the two sides of the shot we are making, then I shaped with 1 inch. Now this depends on the allowance you added, but because I added 1 inch, I shaped the 1 inch. And then for the inside as well, which is the inseam, I went ahead to shape as well. This is what we have when we are done shaping. I went ahead to put my zipper, and then for the other side of the rope, I went ahead to also prepare a rope and place it at the end of that wrap. Now we are done with the shorts and we are going to start working on the top. The top is going to be a quick one, right? So for the bottom placket we left, I highly also recommend interfacing it to make it stronger, but I use just hemming gum to firm my own a little, right? You are going to fold in 0.5 inches, and then you're going to use the extra 1 inch we use for the placket to complete the folding to make it neat, right? This is how to prep your bottom placket. I went ahead to top stitch on the placket, and when we are done, this is what it should look like. Now the next thing I went ahead to do is to join the shoulder. Now I place the front on the back, right side facing each other, and I joined the shoulder. After joining the shoulder, I went ahead to fold the sleeve and also shape. Now this is a simple thing you can actually just do in few seconds. Just go ahead, join the shoulder, fold the sleeve, and then shape. Now that I was done shaping, the next thing I did was to place one side of the placket on top of the other, and I top stitch it with like 3 inches up. This is because the elastic we are going to be putting on the hem is going to go round, right? So when I was done doing that, the next thing was to prep my elastic, right? So to do that, you have to take your round waist measurement. Remember, this is the waist of the crop top. So the way I'm doing it, go ahead and repeat the exact same thing I'm doing. Take your round waist measurement, the exact way I'm taking it. So whatever you have is what you are going to use to cut out the band, right? So for my elastic, I used a 1.5 inches elastic. You can use 1 inch, you can use 2 inches, depending on how bold you want it to be. But I highly recommend using 1.5 inches for this particular case because that one is prettier, right? So when you've taken your measurement, you're going to add extra 1 inch to your band. That 1 inch is going to serve as the allowance, right? So when you're done cutting, you're going to join it with 0.5 inches on both sides to make it round. And then for your elastic as well, you're also going to join the elastic. Okay, so on the elastic, you're going to place one end of the elastic on top of the other, and so you're not going to join it the way we join clothes, right? We're not going to join it the exact way we join clothes. And for the other side, for the fabric, you're going to join on the end just to make it round. So when we are done joining, the next thing is to encase the elastic as well in between the fabric. Now place the elastic between the two sides of the fabric, and you're going to encase by sewing it all the way around, and make sure you're not sewing on top of the elastic. Now this is what we have when we are done. You can go ahead and top stitch on it, but that is optional. I like doing it like I said before, it makes it a lot prettier. So I went ahead to top stitch on it. And when you are done top stitching on it, you're going to go ahead and fix this on top. You're going to go ahead and fix it to your upper part. Right, so to fix it, just go ahead and sew it all around. While sewing it, you're going to be drawing it to make sure that that elastic reaches all around your top. So this is what we have when we are done. The next thing we are going to go ahead to do is to work on the neck. So for the neck, I went ahead to take the measurement of my round neck, right? Just the way you see me doing. Take your round neck measurement. Whatever you have, divide it into two. Right? So now I went ahead to cut out a piece of fabric folded into two. This is what I went ahead to use for my band, for my bishop neck, right? So this fabric folded into two, I folded it again in a triangular form. This is how we cut our bishop neck. Now if you want a more detailed tutorial on how to make bishop neck, I already have that on my channel. I'm going to be linking it down in the description box, or you can just go through my content in my channel. You're going to see it there, right? So I'm going to just get over this quickly so that it's not going to waste a lot of our time. Now from the tip of this fold, I went down by 13 inches. This is just to get a base. Now I join that 13 inches and then I take a measurement. Now remember the measurement we have of our round neck. You're going to divide it into two, and that's the measurement you are going to ensure that you have here, right? So one mistake I made was after taking the measurement, I went down on my fabric instead of going up. Now that measurement you took is the measurement of your round neck, the root, right? So when you've gotten that, all you have to do is to go up from that measurement by 1 inch or by 1.5 inches, depending on how wide you want your bishop neck to be. Don't forget to add your sewing allowance, especially if you're also cutting directly on your fabric. Like I said, I already have a detailed video on how to make this. So if this is too fast for you or do not understand this, make sure you go ahead to watch that video, because watching that video is going to help you understand this a lot better, right? So I went ahead to cut this out. And to start sewing it, this is what we have. I cut the two of them together, the lining and the fabric and the bishop neck itself. Now, the first thing I went ahead to do is to fold one side. I highly recommend interfacing your bishop neck to make it firm, right? I went ahead to fold one side, then I joined the two of them together. So after joining the two of them with 0.5 inches, you go ahead and notch, cut off the excess allowance where needed and notch where needed, right? After cutting, I went ahead to turn and I pressed it down Okay, so after pressing it down, we are going to go ahead and start sewing this on our fabric. Now that we are done, I went ahead to press it down, and this is what you have. So remember to fold one side of it so that when you want to sew it on your fabric, it's going to be a lot easier for you. So that part that you do not fold is the part you're going to join from the outside of your neck, of your project neck. So you're going to use that 0.5 inches to join round your neck, and then you're going to use the other part, the part that you folded, to finish up this look. Now when you're finishing it up, you're going to be sewing from the outside. This is going to help it to be a lot neat. So what you're going to do is the ruff that you have at the neck, you're going to push it in between the bishop collar, then you're going to go ahead and match on top, right? So this is what we have when we are done. This is everything we are going to be doing for this top. This is how beautiful this top looks. Now, if you're still watching till now, thank you very much for staying behind, and thank you for the support you're bringing to my channel so far. If you're still here to subscribe, please do hit the subscribe button and turn on your post notification to get notified anytime we upload a video like this. Thank you very much. And if you have any tutorial you want us to drop in the channel, do place your recommendation in the comment section so we can work on that. So thank you once again, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.